Hi, welcome to MediatorPodcast.com, a podcast and video series about mediation, negotiation, and collaboration. My name is Melissa Gragg, and I provide online valuation, divorce, and mediation services based out of St. Louis, Missouri. Today, we will discuss independent legal advice and divorce mediation with Lauren Hunt. Lauren is an attorney mediator in New York who focuses on family issues, including divorce, custody, child support, and adoption. Certainly in mediation collaborative, there's also, some requirements to be honest. There's some requirements of how we're going to conduct ourselves during these discussions.
Mhm.
And I think those are important pieces of how to move forward. So it is a more, there is some structure to it.
For sure. For sure. And I think actually that's a really good point. There is structure to all of these processes. And the goal is that it stays as amicable as possible. If I'm in a mediation and I notice the temperatures are rising, hey guys, let's take a 5-minute break. Or
Mhm,
let's table these issues and come back on another day.
mhm,
The process is really driven by the person's going through it. So if
mhm,
if it needs to take 5 months because there's, the idea of divorce is just so brand new and we kind of got to get around that idea, right? We need maybe a lengthier time in between the meetings. That's fine. That's what we
yeah,
do. If the goal is like, we just really need to get this done because I just need to close this chapter. Okay, we can meet every week until we're done if you need. So
right.
it's really so flexible and it can be as fast or as slow as you need. You don't get that in the court system, right? Because the court system is what drives the process if you're in court. And so you very well, like you mentioned, you may be working in a court system or filing in a court system that's 2 years backed up, 3 years backed up because of COVID.
Mhm,
I mean, and then, if you're in court, you've got a lot of, at least in New York State, there's a lot of required disclosure or actions that have to be taken that are very formalized, time intensive, and could be done in a simpler way, but achieve a similar result if you're
mhm,
in mediation or collaborative. And I
mhm.
just wanted to hit on one thing because I think you had mentioned something about disclosure. Do I recall that correctly? Something
Sure.
about like making sure you're like, yeah, I'm just gonna go with that. I did say something. Um, so I think what I get a lot of parents telling me, and it typically comes from the parent who maybe didn't have a whole lot of involvement in the finances, maybe they were the stay-at-home parent. I typically hear, how do I know that they're going to be honest about the assets? I don't know. I hear a lot of fear about, well, how do I know? I can't just trust them. Okay, absolutely understand. You shouldn't just have to trust, right? So there is the requirement in all of these forms for full disclosure,
Mhm,
and that disclosure has to be done to a point of satisfaction for both spouses. So
mhm,
typically, it's the production of bank statements, bank records, perhaps a credit check. There's a million different ways to make sure that that disclosure is complete and something that can be trusted. And I think so that is something that not a lot of people recognize is a required part of all of these other options. Um,
mhm.
and it's obviously, you have to do disclosure if you're in court, at least in New York State. You have to do it. The process for it is time intensive, which means that it's costly, and we can achieve the same results um, with a far more streamlined process when we're outside of court. So
Right.
that saves you money.
Yeah. Well, and I think you talk about an interesting process. So, okay, I came to you, I brought my spouse, we did mediation, we, involved a financial person, we got everything done, right? Okay. So, we agree. Are we done?
Where do we go now?
We're done.
Right,
Yay!
exactly.
Like,
Like pop the champagne, but what the heck happens next?
yeah, yeah. Help people kind of understand like what happens from the mediation or even the collaborative. It doesn't matter. Like, are we always going to sit outside of court or what do we need to do after that?
Right. And so that process is going to likely differ based upon the state that you're in. So the way we've been talking about these is that everything is happening before you even file a divorce action.
Mhm.
And so let's say you've gotten to the end, you've got a signed, in New York State, it's called a signed separation agreement or a signed marital settlement agreement. Those two words mean the same thing. It's basically a contract that says, as between me and my spouse, here's how we're handling custody, here's how we're handling child support, here's how we handle all of the different issues. You have that document, right? First, you have a party because that's a huge step to get there. So you have that document, and then next you need to file in New York the uncontested divorce process.
Okay.
It is basically a set of papers that have to get submitted to the court in a specific series of timeframes. And at the end of that, the judge basically signs a judgment of divorce that says the separation agreement is becoming your judgment of divorce. It is in New York, there's no court conferences, there's no nothing. I know in other states, there might be a court conference required at the end where you appear and say, yes, we want this. But in New
Right.
York, nothing. It's just the judge reviews everything on the papers and then signs the judgment. So for New York, getting to the agreement, getting to that signed contract is the biggest part. And once you're there, for all intents and purposes, you're divorced. You're not legally divorced, right? So in the eyes of the
Mhm.
state government and the federal government, you're still married. So for tax purposes, for health insurance reasons, you're still married.
Mhm.
But as between you and your spouse, you know that those issues are resolved. And that is a huge emotional weight that so many people are like, oh my gosh, okay.
Yeah.
Like that is the point you want to get to.